Thank you. All right, so welcome everybody. We're going to get started. It's just about 6:05. I expect people to trickle in, but if not, we are recording this, so this will go up on the website so that people can get caught up. I think let's go to the next slide. So we're going to be talking about Townfield and improvements to Townfield. This is we did just recently complete the playground. We also call it Townfield Doherty Gibson Park, Doherty Gibson Playground, but it is colloquially known in the neighborhood as Townfield, and I think that was the previous name prior to it being called Doherty Gibson. This is in the Fields Corner neighborhood in Dorchester. So this meeting is being recorded. We're going to be posting this recording on the project website for anyone who's unable to attend the meeting. One of the things that doesn't get captured in the recording are the meeting chat, the live chat that's going on. So sometimes you may hear me repeat some of the questions or some of the comments that are in the chat so that we can try to keep that all together and synchronous. Sometimes it's hard to catch up later on. So if you are comfortable, if you're not comfortable having your video on, you're welcome to keep it off, but do please keep your microphone muted. And when we enter our discussion portion, I think we will allow people to unmute themselves at that point. It doesn't look like anybody's joining us via phone, but we do have the chat live. So if you have any questions that come up during our presentation section, which we're going to try to keep pretty short, feel free to use that or raise your hand and we'll call on you through that. So tonight's agenda, we're going to be going through a project overview, introducing you to the team, talk about what our schedule is, what our process is going to be. Then I'm going to turn it over to the design team, and they're going to talk about the existing conditions, go through the context, what the conditions are at the park, and then we really want to hear from you. That's the reason that we're here. So we really want to leave a lot of time for a discussion period. So that's how we're going to be spending our evening tonight. So let's go to the next slide. So I will introduce myself. My name is Kathy Baker Eclipse. I'm not listed on this slide. I'm stepping in for Nate Frazee, who is the project manager. He had a family emergency and was unable to join us tonight. But he is the main point of contact for the city of Boston for this project. So his contact info is there. If you have any questions about things we glossed over, things we didn't get into enough, he is a great point of contact and is available via email or phone. So feel free to reach out to him with any additional questions that you have. We engaged agency landscape and planning for the design work for this project. We did work with some community members to select them. We interviewed a few designers and really felt like we were in good hands with agency, being able to listen to the community closely, work closely with the community, and really try to reflect your desires in the design of this park. So Kate Took is the lead principal and landscape architect on the team. Radhika Mahan is also joining us tonight, as is Jingzi Fan. So thank you all for joining us. So we're just beginning our process. We're going to be studying the site analysis, and part of that site analysis is really understanding the community, the ways the community uses the park, its history, its future. So those are all the things we want to think about, and we're really here to listen to you and what you want to hear, what you want to get out of this park. Where they're going to be entering into a program development phase where we're going to be testing some fits. If we move these basketball courts over there, what does that mean? How can we free up some space? How can we create multifunctional spaces? All those kinds of ideas. And we're going to be presenting those to the community. So we're going to be presenting the good ones to the community, I should say. We're not going to be presenting the ones that are not workable. So we're going to be coming back to you and presenting those ideas, and then hearing what you think about each of those concepts, and then presenting a final consensus plan based on what we hear from those tested ideas. The main point of this exercise, or one of the main points of this exercise, is to get an idea of how much improvements to this park will cost. We have design fees for schematic design in our capital budget right now, and we want to include what the community sees. We want to include building out that consensus plan in our future capital plans. So we're going to be developing that over the winter, and that will be voted on by the city council late spring. So we'll be moving the design further in FY25. So this is just the start of the conversations, and we really want to make some improvements to Townfield for your neighborhood. So community input is an important part of our design process. It is not the only thing that we are thinking about when we're thinking about improvements to our park. The city of Boston has a list of priorities that we're trying to advance, creating walkable access to parks, keeping equity at the center of what we do, thinking about how we can protect the city through our parkland and other city assets from climate resilient elements. There's stormwater flooding. I think it's largely stormwater flooding, and I think it's largely stormwater flooding here, but heat is another really important element about how we can keep our city safe as the climate warms and tides rise. So providing shade opportunities, providing cooling spaces for our city residents is a really important thing that we're constantly talking about. And that also reinforces some of the public health improvements that we see. This is a really important recreational facility, so keeping that in mind as we plan what the future for Townfield is going to be. And all of that supports community building. At the Parks Department, we want to create spaces that are available and accessible to everyone. Accessibility is a really important component of everything we do, making sure that everybody of all abilities is able to access our parkland equally. And providing a diverse, balanced, and efficient mix of uses. Can this space be more than one thing for more than one occasion? Can it be a picnic area one day and a plaza the next? Can it be host birthday parties? Can it host community events? How do we provide a space that's going to be able to be more than just a single use? We really want to listen to the community and provide a space that's going to work for you. So a meaningful and inclusive community engagement is an important goal that we in the department have, and also providing adaptive and resilient landscapes that promote connections, both metaphorical and physical connections into the community, so the community can access the space and promote connections between people. The other really important factor that we have to always keep in mind is safety and regulatory guidelines. This is especially important in playgrounds, but we have a brand new playground at Doherty Gibson Townfield. But it also comes into play when we're talking about sports facilities. How do we create safe spaces for players? How do we create safe spaces for neighbors? And what are those regulatory guidelines that we're thinking about? So that all gets distilled through agencies' innovative design into a great park design. We've already started some community engagement. You can see Nate there in the sunglasses. So we've already started some community engagement and gotten out into the site. So we are in the field. We've had some community conversations already. We're looking to build on that even more, and we're excited to hear more from you all. All right, so tonight's goals. We are here, the city and the design team are here. We want to listen to the community and hear what you think about Townfield, what it could be, what it should be, and what you want. We're going to share some information about what we see as design professionals, and we're going to ask a lot of questions, and we are really excited to hear from you all. So I invite you to keep an open mind about some of the information that we're going to be presenting, but definitely let us know if we're getting it totally wrong. And so share your perspective about the field, and please take this information and go back out to your friends and your neighbors. Talk about what this park could be, how this is really exciting, and how the park can change and better reflect the needs of the community. So I'm going to turn it over to agency at this point, and I am going to start listening. Thanks.
Super. Thanks, Kathy. Nice introduction of the project. And Lorenzo and Lisa, we're so glad you're here. And we hope that others have a chance to watch the recording and chime in other ways. And we can clarify that towards the end. We do have some poll questions, which are going to be a little funny with the small audience that we have tonight. But what's going to happen is we're going to share a question, and they're multiple choice questions mostly. So we're hoping that you can, at the same time, it'll pop up and you'll be able to select your answer. And you can use the chat to share additional context with us if you'd like to. So we're not going to give you a ton of time because there's only 2 of you, but hopefully you'll both participate in the 3. Hopefully you'll both participate in the poll question. So on the next slide, you'll see our first question. This is kind of a warm-up. We're curious if you can tell us a little bit about how often you visit Town Field. Do you visit daily? Do you get there about once a week? Are you more of a monthly visitor? Are you there occasionally? Think about like once or twice a year, or once or twice in your time in Boston. Or have you never been to Town Field? So you can choose to express an answer. So far, we have 2 answers. I'm going to give you just one last moment to see if we can get one more. So most folks visiting weekly right now. I'm going to end the poll and you'll be able to see the results coming up right in front of you. So 2 out of 2 folks said that weekly was about as often as they visit. So you're there pretty frequently. You have eyes on the park really regularly. So what we're going to do now is dive into a little bit of information about the history of Town Field, its context within the Field Corner neighborhood, and then some more detail about the park. And we'll be sprinkling some questions throughout to keep you on your toes, and hopefully to have you share some important information with us. So first, we want to start by just thinking about what aspects of Town Field's history and culture inform where it is today. So, big picture in broad brush strokes, this is a part of New England where native populations settled and hunted and fished in this landscape for many, many centuries. And the Fields family, the namesake of Fields Corner, settled here and farmed in the area as early as about 1630, so just after the famous Mayflower landed. The Field House, which stands today and is an iconic part of the neighborhood, was built in 1795. And really, it was farmland and sort of the domain of the Fields family until that point. The advent of the streetcar in the 1800s brought a lot of new development in the area. So on the next slide, you'll see just some historic maps that give you a sense of that context. You can see the site outlined in 1882. It was still relatively rural, with some street grid developing towards the eastern side, and Tenayton Creek flowing through the northeast corner of the site. It was already owned by the city of Boston at that time, and probably land held in common for grazing or other farming activities, similar to the Boston Common. Now in 1899, you can see that a railroad shed was built in the northwest corner of the park, and that gave way to an extension of Geneva Ave that actually cut this parcel into 2 pieces. And that cutting of the park remained for more than 30 years and left some infrastructure that we'll explain that are an important criteria to consider in the design of the future park. By 1933, you can see that the commercial and residential uses had really filled in around the park, and then that Park Street had been widened at the north there for dedicated transit use. So really taking the shape that is in place today in terms of its edges and uses surrounding it. So if we keep going here, you'll see that we took a little bit of a dive into the history of this space. It's been a playground for quite some time, since the 1920s. It's been really a play field at first, so an opportunity just to have grass and lawn It took the form of more of a sort of professional sports league at times, and also a place for children and families to play and picnic together. We really love this image from the 1930s of the large stroller and the family and group of kids standing and staring so vividly at the camera. You can also see that those trees, which were planted in the 1930s, make up some of the canopy that we'll talk about today. That is a tree canopy that's there today. So if we keep going just a little bit more, we have our first question or our next question for you, which is, curious to know from this group, how long have you lived in the Fields Corner neighborhood, to give a sense of your history? And if you have a favorite memory from Fields Corner, feel free to enter it into the chat so we can get a little sense of the color of the neighborhood. So did you have you lived here your whole life? B, more than 10 years? So not a born native, but moved here and have been here a long time, 2 to 9 years. Or I moved here in the past 2 years, so a relatively recent resident. And then for anyone who doesn't actually live in Fields Corner. So of the 2 respondents so far, most have lived here more than 10 years, which is a really good long time. So I'm going to share that back with you all just so you can see it. And I think that, it's a testament to, what a powerful neighborhood it is that people really move here and stay because it's a wonderful place to live in the city. Counselor, sorry, I just noticed in the chat there that more than 10 years and, the open streets events are one of those favorite memories. Thank you for sharing. So on the next slide, we'll just share a little bit more information about Town Field. So I think as you started to allude with having been residents here for more than 10 years, this is an incredible neighborhood in the city to live in. It's been recognized by the American Planning Association in 2014 as one of the 10 great neighborhoods in America, which is a really important distinction. And really that award cited the significant history and community engagement and cultural amenities of this very special place, from the way that the shop fronts relate to the street to the things like farmers markets that really gather people together. It's home to a really diverse community. So here are just a few of those statistics about who lives and works in the Fields Corner community. So this is a neighborhood that's predominantly BIPOC population and has a sort of lower level of English proficiency than across the city as a whole, and many folks speaking a diversity of languages at home. I think the other thing that really stands out about the Fields Corner neighborhood is that people are living in relatively dense households, so lots of folks living under one roof together in sort of larger family groups. It's a mostly renter occupied housing stock. And a little bit less than the median household income of Boston as a whole. So a real need for open space here. I think the last point we want to make about the neighborhood here is that this is a neighborhood that has been identified in the citywide planning efforts around heat and stormwater resilience to be at risk for both. You can see in red there, it's showing daytime air temperatures that are above comfort levels, and that's mostly focused around the core area of Fields Corner, as well as the parking lot just north of the site. And then in green, you can see areas of stormwater flooding. So this is localized flooding that happens when our storm system gets overwhelmed. It's not about sea level rise, but instead just intensity of storms and nuisance and pocket flooding that happens in the district. So there's a potential for the park to actually be a really important factor in helping to mitigate both of those things. So our next question for you is really to just ask, which neighborhood groups or organizations that are representing cultural values and, history and other aspects of the Fields Corner culture do you think are most advancing the needs of and interests of Fields Corner residents? So you can feel free to drop your answer in the chat and I will take a look at that. I see youth sports leagues. So the ADSL has a home here right on Fields Corner, right on Town Field, and has for quite some time and is supporting a lot of that youth activity. They also run programming for adults, we hear, boot camp classes, and have field events that really welcome the whole community. So thank you for that, Lisa. We really agree, and have had some good conversations with them so far. Thank you, IO, Dorchester Art Project, Fields Corner PL. I might need help making sure that I know what PL stands for in this case, and Battle of New England. Okay, so that's a historic group representing some, thank you, Public Library, but a historic group representing some of the interests of history in the area. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. These are really helpful. Feel free to keep dropping those in as we move on. We're going to now talk a little bit about the park itself.
Great. So we, as landscape architects, always want to try and understand what are the systems that make up the park. So in this case, we're really considering what the edges of the park look like, where the pathways go and lead you to, what types of events and activities take place at the park, and what are some of the environmental systems that make up town field, for example, vegetation, stormwater, and some of those considerations. So first, we start to understand how people arrive at the park. As we understand it, much of the access happens along Dorchester Avenue, with some potential openings along Park Street and Burnside Street. So along Dorchester Avenue, there are currently a number of entrances. There's a playground entry down here at the lower level. There's the entry to the ADSL building and the adjacent plaza, and a small vehicular entry right behind that building. Along Park Street, we have a fence opening about midway through the block, as well as a set of stairs, which you can see at the top right corner here. And finally, along Bourne Street, there are two fence openings along this section of the street, which allows a somewhat more informal entry experience into the park. So our next poll question is to ask you how you usually arrive at the park. So the choices are either from Dorchester Avenue, B, from Geneva Ave or along Park Street, from Burnside Street, or from the Field House. So a couple of people enter at Dorchester Avenue, and then one person enters from Geneva along Park Street. So that's helpful to know. Thank you. Going to share the results. Great. We also try to understand what the components of the park are, sort of at the bigger picture. In the case of Town Field, much of the park is currently sports lawn or recreational lawn. So we can see more than half of the about 8.5 acre site is currently sports lawn with the existing baseball and softball fields. We also have about 30% of transitive green, which is really all the interstitial space that is not recreational lawn. We have the two basketball courts along the northwest corner, and we have the recently improved playground down at Dorchester Avenue. And in terms of tree canopy, and again, thinking about Urban Heat Island, we have about 16% of the site has canopy coverage with the existing mature trees. So that is what it looks like today. As I mentioned, much of the lawn is recreational lawn with a number of mature trees framing the recreational lawn spaces. We also understand that the park is pretty heavily used on a daily and weekly basis. We know that the ADSL runs a number of programs, as Kate noted, including after-school programs. The basketball courts, the baseball fields, and the playground and splash pad are pretty well used. as is the little plaza outside the ADSL building. And we also understand that the community garden is pretty well used, and there have been lots of questions about what is really the right location for it. We also know that the park is host to a number of special events. The image on the left is taken from the Mother's Day Walk for Peace, which is organized by the Viet Aid organization. And this image on the right is from the Juneteenth celebration. So we know that a number of special events do take place on the park, and it needs to support fairly large numbers. So the next question here for you is, my favorite things to do at Townfield are, and you can check 3. And you can also tell us in the chat if one of your favorite things to do is not on this list.
So the answers are watching sports or playing sports, community gardening, playing at the playground, picnicking and hanging out, attending events, visiting the field house for any number of reasons or programs that are offered there, or something else that we missed. So I see there's a couple of answers so far. Remember that you can choose 3. So definitely feel free to check more than one. We understand that more than one thing brings people out to enjoy parks. So I see playing and watching sports is starting to come up in 2 out of the answers. Playing at the playground is highlighted, and attending events and visiting that field house. I'm going to check the chat. Somebody has said, the Louis D. Brown the Peace Walk. Yeah. So specific events. That Peace Walk is really a neighborhood institution. Thank you. Anything else coming out of here? I think that playing and watching sports is coming up twice. So be curious to know in the chat which specific sports you come to see or to play. That could be helpful. I'm just going to share those results for a minute so everyone can see. And again, feel free to tell us in the chat what other sports you're coming to watch or to play. National Night Out. Thank you, Lisa. National Night Out, Dorchester Day. Nice. Yep. Oh, Lisa,
Great.
you're muted. Yeah. But yeah, I think we can move on, Radhika. Lisa, you can drop it in the chat and then, or hold the comment for a little bit. Yeah.
So again, starting to understand the vegetation that exists on site today, we have a number of trees along the edges of the park. And as Kate noted, some of them are likely the historic trees from, back in the 20s. So the trees really frame the edges of the park, and we know that a bulk of the site is essentially lawn. But we're going to focus for a minute on the percentage of pervious to impervious ratio here. This is important because where Townfield is located within Fields Corner and being really in the heart of the urban heat island effect, this park is really a chance to help make the difference on a climate level and for comfort as well. So these are things that we start to understand and will be taking into consideration moving forward. So again, this is a slightly different view of the trees. They're just really so special, and it's something that we will work hard to preserve and work around. Another key aspect of our understanding of the site is to start to understand how the topography is across the site. So at a big picture, there's about 14 feet of grade change from the south of the site all the way up to the north. And the way that the sports fields are sort of flattened out to create the flat spaces to play it pushes some of the grade change along the edges, which really starts to impact the arrival entry or the entry sequence into the park itself. As we know, some of these entries along the park edges are not accessible. So these are considerations we will be looking at as we move through the process. As Kate briefly touched on, there are a number of utilities on the site that we will be working around. The most significant one likely is there is an existing gas line that's noted in this red line that was below the historic extension of Geneva Ave into the site. So that is something we'll be working around, and always sort of keeping in the back of our minds as we design the spaces. There are also a number of pieces of utility and equipment around the site, which are going to be considered moving forward. So the next question is, my favorite parts of the park are, and you can check 3. We've got the sports fields, the trees, the field house, the historic gateways, the community garden, the courts, and the playground. So let's see. So the field house, the community garden, the courts, the playground. That's great. And I think you can pick more than, I think you can pick more than one. Feel free to
pick 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Sports fields,
Yeah.
the trees, field house. It's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice to see.
Yeah.
We've got answers from everybody, so we'll share those results back so that you can see them. Again, everybody shouting out the field house and the playground, and then lots of support for community garden, the courts, the sports fields, and the trees.
Great. And that comes to the end of our presentation, but we'd love to open it up for discussion now. Kate, do you want to take this on?
Sure thing. I know we're a small group tonight, so discussion guidelines may or may not be necessary. We're not going to be shouting over each other, but we want to just have you keep in mind that others might be waiting to speak, and let everyone have a chance to be heard. And that if there's something that you want to say and don't want to say in this forum, you can always be in touch with Nate, who is the project manager, whose contact information is there. Who can make sure that the design team hears your question or concern. So Lisa, I see your hand is up. So you're going to have a chance to be unmuted, and please jump in and share any thoughts or impressions, anything else we should know. We have a couple of discussion prompts on the screen here. Really, we're hoping to understand, what did we miss? What else should we understand about this park and this community? What's going to distinguish it moving forward? What is it missing? And what we should really be thinking about accommodating in the future. But feel free also to tell us other things that aren't on this list. These are just to seed your mind. Yeah.
First of all, once again, Lisa Searcy, Director of Community Engagement, City Council at Large, Erin Murphy's office. I frequent the park. I frequent ADSL even before I joined Council's office. So I think there are 3 minor but major things that I can point out around the park, around safety mostly. I know the safety guidelines were followed in the development of the playground, but just in my own analogy and just being able, my own observation, I should say, being there during, I think it was Dorchester Day. And I know the barriers are there around I have a picture of it somewhere on my phone, the 3 little poles that are there. But it's so close proximity to the sidewalk and to the street. So during one of these major events at Town Field, the ice cream truck had pulled up. And so now you have the crosswalk and the ice cream truck, and little kids, when they see ice cream trucks, they go bananas. And so I thought that was a huge safety factor.
Yeah.
And then I think it was another thing that I noticed is the splash pads. They're not splashing, the force isn't like it should be. So I guess in the the redevelopment, just the renovations that are going on with this particular park. I watched I have pictures of that too, because it was a fun day down at Fields, down at Town Field. So I noticed that, the pressure of the water, the kids weren't getting the full gist of what sprinkler systems do because of the way the water spouts were going up, if you ever noticed that. And then also because on a great Saturday summer afternoon, mid-morning, there's always something going on in every sector of Town Field. And I just think that, that side drive where the MBTA bus, instead of going straight down Park Street and making the right onto Dorchester Ave, they can go through that little cut through. Now, if there's kids running late or on their way to a basketball game or a softball game or coming from and not paying attention, because I've noticed car accidents happen right there at the Geneva Ave and Park Street, that turn where the buses are coming out. So that's a conversation. But other than that, the lighting is, could be a little, brighter, because it's a great park. Like at night, if you go down Dorchester Ave, even in the wintertime when it's snowing and you can actually see the lights are like nice and bright and you can see the structure of the playground. It's just an amazing, it's beautiful. I live up the street, so I enjoy it. And the Dunkin's across the street is my go-to. But other than that, and then of course, I mean, we're in the city of Boston. Parking for someone that may have multiple children or a child that may need handicap accessibility, or there's no parking for anyone that has a handicap van or a handicap plaque on that side of Dorchester Ave that I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. And I'm glad to be here.
Lisa, those were great points. Thank you so much for offering your thoughts, especially around the park perimeter and issues of sort of safety and movement. So thank you so much for that. That's really helpful. Anyone else want to have a chance to share? Anything else we missed about the park or we should know moving forward? I'll give just a moment more of quiet. It's okay. It's a small group tonight, and you know that you can always reach out to the parks team and the parks project manager if there are other things that occur to you. Lorenzo, I see you unmuting, so
Hi, sorry.
please go ahead.
That's actually my husband's account. So biggest thing is we're parents with ADSL. We like all the programs and everything else. We are also members of the Civic Association, and I was able to find the flyer when I was walking my son to the school bus, but I talked to the president of the Civic Association. They weren't aware of anything about this meeting. So if I hadn't just kind of looked, the flyer wasn't on our door, but it was on some of the other condos sporadically throughout the area. So I took a picture of it, and then I remembered to join. So that was kind of just some of the analysis going through. But what I know, a while back that Townfield was in the running for a family community center. Is that still on the table, or is that totally off and we're just focusing on other features of the park?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So there was a feasibility study for a standalone community center in Dorchester, because Dorchester is such a large community, but does not have, one of the things that COVID highlighted was that there was not a standalone community center that could be opened when the school was closed, right? So a lot of schools closed during COVID, but the community centers were also closed. The end result of that feasibility study was that there was a parcel, a city-owned parcel across from the Burke High School and Throve Hall Library that is just about an acre, and the new standalone community center is going to be on that parcel. So that does free up the town field to remain a recreational facility. And now that that question has been solved, I think we feel really confident that the improvements that we're thinking about here are going to be implemented, and not not interfere with other thoughts, other plans for the neighborhood of Dorchester. Yes,
Okay,
Mike
got
Posey was very instrumental in that advocacy for that parcel across from the Grove Hall Library.
Okay, so no, I mean, that's the biggest thing, the Bourneside entrance street, when we have soccer on that, that's very hard, so we just have to walk around that. Again, playground's a big thing. My question is, bathrooms are always an issue when you have little kids. There's no bathroom facilities right there, especially near the playground. And then just more of kind of like a gate, because a lot of times the kids will run all over the place, especially towards the water feature if they don't want to be on the water feature.
So if a kid is playing soccer, they'll run towards the
Oh no, I'm sorry. On the Bourneside entrance, that's the back part of the park.
Yeah.
It's hard to find the gates to go through there
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
for access points. And then for the water feature, there's no separation between that and the playground. So sometimes you'll have kids just run through there that
Mhm.
weren't prepared for water.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
helpful. Thank you. That's the second time we've heard that it's very difficult to find the Bourneside. It's just an opening in the fence there. So thank you
Okay.
for that. Yeah.
I think
One
I
last
am
call.
the only one we haven't heard from. So if you have anything to add, we welcome it.
Honestly, I was trying to recuse myself as a member of a city. And honestly, I do feel like a lot of my concerns have been addressed already. I was going to mention the gate, which was just mentioned, and then Lisa mentioned a lot of the safety issues. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot that wasn't already said. I know that there's a lot of innovations coming, especially on the base. But anything does come to mind, I'll shoot an email, but nothing right now.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Sounds great, Aya. Thank you. So maybe we can just go to the last slide, which gives us a chance to again remind you that you can find this recording as well as other ongoing project updates on the boston.gov/town-field website. The next community meeting will be back to you with some ideas about the future, different alternatives to consider, and ask you to tell us what you like and what's missing from those different ideas. And then anytime in the meantime, if you have questions or needs, you can use the 311 or contact Nate Frise as the project manager of the project. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye all.
Oh, I have a question for y'all. The raised, because I do want to make sure that people do have enough involvement in this as possible. So what is the method that is being currently used to sort of get this information out to the public?
Yeah, I can't speak 100% to that. We are our community outreach coordinator. Have we stopped the recording?
Still on.
Yeah, it's still on.
Yeah.
Do you want me to stop it?
Yeah. Why don't we stop it?